Today's poem is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. Written by Stephen Spender. First, I would like to tell you something about the poet. Stephen Spender, born in 1909, along with W. H. Auden and Cecil Day Lewis, pioneered the poetic movements of the 1930s. Through his powerful writings, both in prose and verse, he established himself as a prominent poet of the modern age. As a poet, Spender was sensitively alive to contemporary social and political problems. In his poetry reflects his awareness of the wide world lying outside the precincts of his individual self. He called himself a socialist and pacifist. Scared by the storms and stresses of the post-World War Europe, Spender's poetry is partly an expression of these intense search for harmony and synthesis between the apparently warring claims of a visionary and a man of action. So, the main point here will be considered as he was a pioneer of poetic movement. So, the poet was pioneer of the poetic movement. He is the prominent poet of the modern age. So, prominent poet. He depicts the aspect of political and social problems, called himself a socialist and pacifist. So, he is also known as socialist and pacifist. Always depicts the aspect of political and social problems. So, this will also be a main point, that he depicts the aspects of political and social problems. Now, here is the time to give introduction to the poem. So, next point is introduction to the poem. First, the poem depicts the harsh realities of life as experienced by the slum children. Actually, children of slums are deprived of right to education, and there is a distant future beyond their reach. The poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, beautifully brings out the contrast in Stephen Spender as a romantic poet, torn by the aftermaths of two brutal world wars. Living in an age of social unrest and economic bankruptcy, he highlights the harsh realities of life as experienced by the slum children. With the gulf between haves and have-nots increasing at an unimaginable pace, the children in the slums are deprived of their basic right to education. Their eyes dream of a better future which is distant and beyond their reach. So, the point here be considered as depiction of harsh realities of life. The next thing is children of slums deprived from right to education. So, children of slums are deprived of right to education. Moreover, a better future is far from their reach. Let's have the summary of the poem now. So, the next point is summary of the poem. The poem describes an elementary school in a slum. The children studying there look pathetic, far away from the activity and jubilations of life. The faces of these children are withered and worn out like uprooted weeds. Surrounded by squalor and apathy of people, they have no time and money to keep themselves clean. Their hair is scattered untidily around their faces. A tall girl student is weighed down and burdened with the atrocities of life. Another student, a boy, is weak and timid. His hungry eyes, like that of a rat, are searching for food and contentment. Malnutrition has kept him short and stunted. He is an unfortunate heir to deformed, twisted body. Disease and pain are his only inheritance. When he recites his lesson from the desk, his voice is mellow and weak. It sounds sickly, like his father's gnarled disease. There is no spirit, no enthusiasm in his voice or action. Somewhere in the remote corner of the poorly lit and ill-equipped class, one may see a young and sweet pupil, unnoticed by others and lost in the world of his dreams. He creates his own fantastic world where he plays and frolics. The dull and monotonous route of the classroom does not interest him. In a corner stands a portrait or bust of Shakespeare. It is ironical that the literary master's portrait bust should be housed in a classroom where no serious teaching takes place. So, the main points considered here will be: it's about an elementary school in a slum. They are burdened with hardships of life. Moreover, they have weak, timid and clumsy bodies. Disease and pain are their only inheritance. They are not interested in dull and monotonous routine of classroom. The environment and appearance of the class is as follows: a morbid atmosphere, a portrait of Shakespeare, they are indifferent to the joys of literature, indifferent to the beauty of nature. There is also a world map mounted on the wall. Children only know the world of their poverty and hunger. Indifferent. They have the world of poverty and hunger. They strive hard for their sustenance and to support crushed and filthy life. They are mere skeletons with a thin skin. They are mere skeletons. Who are the mere skeletons? Slum children. No activity in the school in absence of inspection. And, moreover, last but not the least, this poem ends with a positive note. Actually, poet wants opportunity to be made available to the children, and all forms of injustice with them should be wiped out. So, the end of the poem is with a positive note. The poet wants opportunity, and all forms of injustice should be wiped out with them. This was all about the summary of the poem. Now, the theme of the poem. There is a criticism of the social injustice and class inequalities. Moreover, the poet calls for holistic education and relief of the slum children of their misery. So, criticism of social injustice and class inequalities. Moreover, calls for relief of, calls for a fine education for slum children and relief of their misery. That was all about the poem. Thank you.